When a person balances his checkbook, say he's punching some numbers into a phone or into a computer by a machine, and he sees, let's say, that his balance is, l'mashal, $250. Okay, that's better than a balance of zero. But of course the question remains, how many checks are yet to come through? How many checks did he write out that are still going to clear? So he looks at his checkbook and he sees that he made a $100 check to the dentist, a $100 check to the butcher, a $100 check to the grocery. Uh-oh, it doesn't add up. Now if those checks cleared already, Baruch Hashem, he has $250. If one of those checks cleared already, Baruch Hashem, at least his checks won't bounce. Another 200 has to come through, he's left with a balance of 50. But if none of those checks cleared yet, that means $300 is coming out of his account and he only has $250 there, so life can get interesting. That's when he has to be machazek his midas habetachim, or perhaps engage the inyonim of hishtadlus that may pertain to the person's specific situation. In a sense, however, this is exactly what Chazal are telling us when they say that we read the Teichacha, we read what appears to be curses, the warnings of what's going to happen to us when we don't adhere to Torah and mitzvahs, b'dafka before Rosh Hashanah. Chazal phrase this as Tich Lashana v'kil l'seah, Tachel Shana u'bir chesel. Tich Lashana, may the year end and its curses. The Tachel Shana u'bir chesel, may a new year begin with its brachas. In other words, we're hoping that the klolos already passed. The klolos have already cleared. They're part of the last cheshbon. When Rosh Hashanah comes, there's a brand new slate, a clear slate. Whatever oynish chas v'sholom is due to me, hopefully I was already yaitza. Incidentally, so why do we read the Teichacha Parshas Ki Savo, which is usually the Shabbos before the Shabbos, before Rosh Hashanah? The Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah is Parshas Nitzavim. According to this cheshbon, we should read the Teichacha right before Rosh Hashanah, not 2 weeks beforehand. So the Tzaddik HaKayin makes a beautiful cheshbon for us. He explains to us that Shabbos is mashpia on the entire week. Whatever happens, whatever brachas are going to take place throughout the entire week, is all vested in the previous Shabbos. That's why the chassan gets his aliyah, and there is such a great simcha the Shabbos before. The bar mitzvah bracha, according to many minhagim, gets his aliyah the Shabbos before. We bench Rosh Chodesh, the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh, because the Zohar Kadosh tells us that Shabbos is mashpia on the entire week. Any bracha that manifests itself throughout the entire week has to be embedded in the previous Shabbos. Therefore, the Tzaddik explains, Chazal B'dafka have arranged for us that the reading of the Teichacha takes place not the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah, but the Shabbos before the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. Because the Shabbos of Rosh Hashanah, next Shabbos, Parshas Nitzavim, is already Rosh Hashanah. Whatever takes place during that Shabbos has an effect on the entire week. And we want to be free and clear of the Teichacha. We want the check to have been cleared and paid out completely before there is any vestige of Rosh Hashanah. But let's analyze this for a couple of moments. Chazal is saying we read the Teichacha, the Balkaira reads it lower, and there are various different minhagim as to who gets the aliyah of the Teichacha. There are warnings in the Paiskim that one should not have in mind about an enemy that he may have in the shul. Not that one is permitted to have enemies, but if he does, if that's the fact, he should not have that person in mind by the Teichacha, and so on. So there is so much said about the reading of the Teichacha. And Chazal tell us, Baruch Hashem, we're over with it. It's past, it belongs to last year's cheshbon, now we have a clean slate. We just read the Teichacha, we didn't experience the Teichacha. In order for me to have the $250 in the account, the other checks don't simply have to be posted or declared, they have to be paid out. So how does this work? How do we get the benefit of the Teichacha clearing our last year's cheshbon just by reading the Parsha? And the answer is that the Rebbeinu Shalom has tremendous rachmanis on us. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, be aware of the punishment that is due you. And if you acknowledge how vulnerable you are, and how a Yid has to come on to the Rebbeinu Shalom and what the price is for straying away from the path of Torah and mitzvahs, your genuine concern that ultimately you're going to have to deal with that within itself is considered by the Rebbeinu Shalom as a tshuva, and it is as if the check cleared. The Tzaddik HaKayin explains that often a person feels a pachat in regard to a certain iktsaya. We're up at night, we're tossing and turning, and we worry about a certain thing. It may or may not be a rational fear, but the fact is we're scared about it. And it occupies our thought process. It inhibits our breathing. It diminishes our overall harchavas hadas and menuchas hanefesh. There is something that we are concerned about, something we are worried about. Everyone has their little fears and concerns. Dr. Tzaddik, you should know this is the greatest bracha. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, instead of the actual punishment, instead of an oynish to have to physically manifest itself, I'll frighten you with that oynish. And if you respond properly to the apprehension that is within you, you decide to do tshuva, you're makabel upon yourself some good maisim, imroy adam sheyisurim boyim olav. If he was roggled to learn one daf, learn two dafim now. You're makabel upon yourself. No, I'm taka worried about this. There is a concern here. I'm going to give a certain amount of tzedakah. I'm going to do a certain amount of chesed. I'm going to spend more time learning with my children. Everyone knows what his deficiency is, where he has to make his resolution. But if you respond to your fear by saying, the Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm going to try to do this. Please answer my tefillos and protect me. So you have avoided an actual manifestation of the klala or the punishment that may have been headed in this person's way. Min ha-meitzah karafika. From the meitzah, from the concern, from the worry, we cry out to Hashem, and as a result, anani b'mechavka. The Rebbeinu Shalom can answer us with harchavas hadas, with menuchas hanefesh, without the oynish ever having to take place. So the fear, says the Tzaddik, the pachat for something, should be put into the context of, this is an early warning signal. If I respond properly, then that's all it's going to be, an early warning signal, with nothing that follows. And the Tzaddik explains this in a deeper sense. Sometimes a person may have the schusim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should listen to his tefillah so that the tzara does not come on him. Once the tzara is already there and he is already suffering from an actual problem, not an anticipated problem, then he needs more schusim. Not chas v'shalom to say that the koyach tefillah can't overturn an existing problem. Chas v'lahaska to say that, of course, it can. But it requires much more extensive tefillah and needs greater schusim. So the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, do it now when it's easier, before the problem actually took place. Li'olam yagdim adam tefillah l'tzara, the Gemara says in Masechtas Sanhedrin. And how does he know that the tzara is coming? So sometimes Hashem Yisbarach is me'oyer him through the pachat. But sometimes the tzara explains, a gzeira can be heading a person's way. And the gzeira, in its current form, when it arrives, is going to spell lots of trouble. But a yid, through its koyach tefillah, prior to the gzeira, can be mehapach in such a way you can completely convert it into a brach. Through tefillah, you can arrange so that by the time the gzeira gets to the person, and nothing happens unless it has been decreed to happen at a certain time, you can chaperein beforehand, before it actually comes to fruition, so that it's going to turn into the greatest bracha. And the Tzaddik says, it's the whole inyan of tshuva during the month of Elul. Whatever is coming Rosh Hashanah is coming. But through a yid's koyach tefillah prior to Rosh Hashanah, to the proper tshuva during the month of Elul, you can be mehapech a gzeira ra to a gzeira taiva. You can change what is potentially the most devastating event directed at a person, and you can be mehapech that into the greatest bracha. Particularly by being margish, by feeling the concern prior to its arrival. And Tzaddik brings from the Sefer Yetzirah that the month of Elul corresponds to the Yud, which represents machshava. The month of Elul is precisely that, machshava. The proper frame of mind set into place, a realization of how vulnerable we are and how much we have to come on to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and therefore by carrying out Elul properly, We're Yotze the Gzeir already. We never have to feel the actual tzar. No one had a greater love for Klal Yisrael than Moshe Rabbeinu did. How could Moshe Rabbeinu present all of these teichacha, all of these klalos to us, where the most horrific scenarios are described, of mothers eating their own children and so on? Rav Tzadok explains, Chas ulahaskir, Moshe Rabbeinu did not curse Klal Yisrael. However, each curse that is presented in the Chumash, in this week's Pasha, is an opportunity. An opportunity to study it, an opportunity to understand its sequence, to realize we are vulnerable to it, and as a result to respond in kind, and as a result, there never will be a klal. And understand how far this goes, as Tzadok says. For example, if the Torah warns us, when we don't adhere to Torah and mitzvahs, we will be running from our enemies. So we analyze this, we understand such a thing can happen, we do tshuva, and as a result, not only will this never have to take place, that we have to run away from our enemies, but we're going to be mevakl the whole Indian that the enemy will exist. The enemy will not attack us, he won't chase us, he won't have to run. When Moshe Rabbeinu warns us that a time can come when you won't have a munah in your own life, Moshe Rabbeinu is letting you know, what Tzadok explains, that even during a time of klala, even during a time when things seem so bad, chayecha, it's still your life. The potential for life is there. If you're alive, and you have to be alive to worry, then the potential is there for the greatest of bracha, if you respond to the worry properly. People that worry about whether or not they have a chelik li'olam haba, those are the people that have a chelik li'olam haba. The ones that don't have a chelik are the ones who aren't worried about it. And that's what Chazal mean when they say, Tich l'shana v'kil leisel, tachol shana v'berchesel. If you read the Teichach the way Moshe Rabbeinu intended for us to read it, not as a prophecy that has to happen, but rather as a warning, please don't let this happen, understand that it could happen, be mispalel, do tshuva, then you have just made it not happen. And all of this is interrelated with the beginning of our Pasha, which is the Pasha of Bikurim. The mitzvah that a Yid has to bring his first ripened fruits of the Shivas Aminim to the Beis HaMikdash and to give it to the Kohen. How so? What's the connection? Well, the Pasuk says, "V'hoya ki savi el haaretz," when you will come to the land, Asher Hashem Elokecha noisen lecha nachla v'yirishta v'yashavta ba. Rashi tells us, Magid, the Pasuk is saying, Shaloi nischayivu b'bikurim asher kavshu es haaretz v'chalkoa. The Yidden were not mechuyev in the mitzvah of bikurim until after the 7 years it took them to invade the land, and the subsequent 7 years it took them to properly distribute the land. Many Mefarshim explain over here, the Tiferes Shloim and others, that during the 14 years of war and the lack of organization until everyone is settled in their own place, so everyone feels vulnerable. No one is home yet. And when you feel vulnerable, so you know you have to come on to the Rabbeinu Shalom. And when you know you have to come on to the Rabbeinu Shalom and you understand that the Rabbeinu Shalom is protecting you every moment and guiding you, then you're safe. The danger is, after you inherited the land, and everyone is Isha Machneu v'Isha Digloi, everyone is underneath his orchard and his home, here's where there's a tremendous sakana where a person feels, no, I have everything now. No more war, no more worrying about what I'm going to live on. I have my home, I have my field, it's mine, for me, for my descendants. There's a tremendous danger here. The danger is the Yid may forget that I'll call Neshima v'Neshima Tahalukah, for every breath we have to thank Hashem. Our existence hinges only on the Rabbeinu Shalom's bracha, from breath to breath. When you begin to forget that, that is the greatest danger. And that's why the mitzvah of Bikurim directed the person to understand. You see this fruit that started to grow? Before you do anything else, take it. Bring it to Yerushalayim. Give it to the Kohen. Read the Pasha of Bikurim. Emphasize the fact that I was a nothing. Arami oivid avi. I was in Mitzrayim. I was nothing but a slave. Hashem took me out. Hashem helped me. Hashem protected me. And it is that same help and protection that I continuously have to be mispaled for. That is what the experience of Bikurim and all the parades that went on with Klal Yisrael marching together to Yerushalayim and the experience of being in the Azara and reading before the Kohen, this is what the mitzvah of Bikurim accomplished. The person walked away happy and joyful, but realizing that he has to come on to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that keeps him in check, and that protects him from any manifestation of real Gezeiros. And the Rebbeinu Shalom points out a wondrous thing. You see how the mitzvah of Bikurim changes the person. At the beginning of the parasha it says, so it seems like we have a very powerful footing over here into the land. It's our inheritance. It's our Yerusha, the Yeshafta Ba. At the end of the mitzvah of Bikurim, and you will rejoice in all the goodness that Hashem gave you. We no longer refer to it as Yerusha and Yeshiva and inheritance that is mine, it's to me. I'm here, I'm positioned over here. Rather, we look at it as, what a wonderful present. That Hashem has given me. My whole attitude changes. And also you have the conclusion of the pasuk. I understand, as we discussed last week, that true simcha will only come when I understand that if the Rebbeinu Shalom did give me the means or the know-how, I am obligated to share that with the Levi and the Gera Shebekirbecha. And only then will I truly be happy, because only then do I understand that it's all a present from the Rebbeinu Shalom. There's nothing to be conceited about, and only then am I protected from Chas v'Shalom losing this land by having the wrong attitude, by having the attitude that I owe nothing to no one and that it's all mine. And that's why in the Pasha of Bikurim we mention Arami Yevidavi, which is Lavan's attempt to destroy Yaakov, and Vayireu son of Mitzrim, the attempt of the Mitzrim to destroy us. Lavan was a pauper. He was nothing before Yaakov Avinu came. He didn't even have shepherds. He had to send his own daughter. He couldn't send his sons because he had no sons. When Yaakov Avinu came, his whole life changed. It became a life of wealth and riches and sons. Instead of appreciating what Yaakov Avinu did for him, he viewed Yaakov Avinu as the thief. How dare him leave? I own him. I control him. And Yaakov even left with some sheep on his own. No, I shall not allow this. No one else can have it except me. It is mine. How dare him take from my riches? As a result, what happened? He chases after Yaakov. He's prevented from hurting Yaakov. And he comes home to find out, as the Medrash tells us, that burglars emptied out his entire house, and he's once again the same pauper. You were rich. You were blessed. You should have had all the Akaras Atayv in the world to Yaakov. And the same is true for the Mitzrayim. It is Yosef Atzadik's advice that created Mitzrayim as a superpower that made them the richest country in the world. But instead of appreciating that, on the contrary, Chas v'Shalom, that Klal Yisrael should leave them, should remain independent of them. We own you. And that is why the Mitzrayim were left with nothing, and Lavan was left with nothing. And that is what the pasuk is cautioning us about the Hoya Kisavi Ela Aretz. And the Rebbeinu Shalom says, I want to make things good for you. I want to give you Menuchas Nefesh and Rechavas Hadas. But remember this lesson. Remember the obligation of Akaras Atayv. And if you do, if you understand that you're vulnerable, and you respond in kind, you will be Zarchos, the greatest bracha of security. Hayoim Hazeh. On this day, Hashem Elokecha Mitzavcha Lasis is a Chukim Ha'ela v'Samishpatim v'Shemata v'Yasisu Oisam v'Chol Levavcha v'Chol Nafshecha. What did Moshe Rabbeinu mean when he said, on this day Hashem commanded you? It wasn't this day, it wasn't Har Sinai that Hashem commanded them. So Rashi tells us, Hayoim Hazeh Hashem Elokecha Mitzavcha v'Chol Yom Yu B'Einecha Chadashim. You should view the Torah as if it is brand new every single day. Kilu, as if, by the Yom, Mitzvahisa Aleim, as if you were commanded today. And you are to approach every mitzvah with that same excitement, that same anticipation. Let's say the mashal that a bar mitzvah bacha has when he puts on tefillin the very first time. The Rambam asks, how can there be a mitzvah of Yehavtas Hashem Elokecha? How can you command someone to love? You can command someone to put on tefillin. You can command someone to eat matzos the first night of Pesach. Those are physical things. Whether you like it or not, you do it. Of course, it's better to do it and like it, but if you don't like it, you do it anyhow. But how could you command someone to love? Your mother can command you to eat broccoli and spinach, and you may listen. But can she command you to love the broccoli and spinach? Can a king legislate a law? Not only do you have to eat this, but you have to love it? How can you command me to love it? It's an emotion. And one would imagine to the contrary. The more you try to force someone to like something, it's probably going to have the opposite effect. So how do we understand the mitzvah of the Torah telling us, you have to love? I want to love Hashem, I want to fulfill the mitzvah, and I can try, but can I actually control this? It's an emotion. The Rebbe Chaim answers this with the following mashal. You have a piece of wood that broke, so I can glue it together. Even though it's not an even break, it may be jagged and crooked. But the fact is, if nothing got in the way of you, you can put these two pieces together. Because as crooked as it is, and as complicated as the break is, if no chips fell off, the fact is that one side is going to fit perfectly into the other side. However, if dirt gets in, maybe I attempted to glue it and residue of the previous glue is still there, mud gets in, then I'm going to try to put it together and I'm going to see it just doesn't go, it just doesn't fit perfectly. The Rebbe Chaim says, Kein hu manish b'nishmas adam asher al hu adam. The same is true for a neshama. Ki chelik Hashem amoi. The neshama the yid is a chelik alekai mimao. The pasuk says, nishmas aleika. The pasuk also says, vayipach b'yapav nishmas chaim. There's a lashon in the Zohar, man de nofach mitoichei nofach. Someone who blows from what is in him. So, Kaviyach, we don't understand what this means, but to some extent, the Zohar Kodesh is telling us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu placed part of His presence into human beings. Now, everything in the world wants to come back to its roots, has a taiva to come back to its shayrish. If you rip something out of its roots, there's a natural tendency, regardless of what it is, for it to come back. It is comfortable in the environment that it came from. People have a tremendous interest in knowing their roots. Who is my father? Who is my grandfather? Who is my great-grandfather? Where did they come from? If I showed you a book that has all the roots of Moshe Yankel, his father, his great-grandfather, his great-great-grandfather, all the way up until David HaMelech. So you would be politely interested. But if I showed you a book that has your roots, your Yichus letter, every single grandparent of yours all the way up, you would be much more interested. You would have a tremendous cheshek. You would be excited about it because this is me, this is where I come from. Everything goes back to its shayrish, or at least wants to go back to its shayrish. The teva of fire is to go up, b'leiv hashemayim. Why? Because the shayrish of eish is tachas harakia. The teva of everything else is to fall. A pebble, a stone, wood, rock. Why does it fall? Because its shayrish is b'yesod afar ha'aretz. Anything ultimately has a craving to come back to its makar. And there is no greater love that manifests itself. There is no greater excitement and anticipation when you have a situation of something that was broken off and it comes together. The most moving thing in the world is a family, Rahman al-Islam, that was separated for whatever reason, and now they can embrace each other. And the truth is, if there was a difficult period of forced separation, and afterwards they're together again, generally they're closer than even before. As close as one unit is, if you break it up and put it together, it appreciates the fact that it's one unit more. It doesn't take it for granted. You may see your son every day and enjoy his company, but that once a year when he comes back from Eretz Yisrael, it's a very special moment that you look forward to. So the 11 months of his absence really serves to generate the excitement of the chibur, of the moment of embracing. A mother sends off her daughter, and then she gets to see her again several months later. That heightened level of love, of that feeling of wanting to be together, that was created because there was a void. No neshama wants to come down to this world. The neshama is drafted and sent. This is your job. This is your mission. Here are your objectives. And there are going to be tests. The neshama is ripped away from its shirish. Yes, the Yeshuas HaShechina is with us. But there is a separation. And the neshama has a natural craving to want to go back to its shirish, to want to become close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we kept our neshamas pure, then every time we would pronounce HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name and we would say a bracha, the simcha would be so great, it would be literally difficult to remain down here on this world. The Strelska used to say goodbye to his family before each davening because he felt that he wanted to soar up, that he wouldn't come back down. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zanafel writes about his Rebbe, the Mashach, one of the greatest Talmidim of the Chassam Sofer. When they came to Yerushalayim the first time and they came to the Kaisel, he began to cry out of love. He threw himself against the Kaisel. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zanafel says in the middle of davening, he grabbed hold of his Rebbe and pulled him. And he believed until his very last day, had he not done that, his Rebbe would have not survived. That the love was so great, the association, that feeling of return to the Mokim HaShechina was so intimate, so powerful, he felt his neshama would have left him. He always said, I really believe I saved my Rebbe's life. The Anas of the Ber Maim Chaim explains that was the Madrega of all the Nevi'im, that they were able to generate such a degree of simcha and love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that their guf literally became bottle. All their chushim, all their senses sort of ceased to function to a higher force. And that's how the Yeshuas HaShechina manifested themselves in them, and they were able to talk about the words of Nevuah, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu had said to them. Without that bittul haguf, the Nevuah would have never penetrated. And that's what we're in the Psukim in Daniel, the Ber Maim Chaim says. The hoidai, nepach halayla mashchis, the great hoid, the great beauty of Hashem, the praise of Hashem, turned against me as if to destroy me. I had no power anymore. In other words, my guf, the koyach haguf, the gashmius, the physical aspect of my being, diminished itself, and as a result, the nikshra datay el surho elam in Baruch Hu. His das was able to tie itself al surho elam. This is how Daniel explains how he was zeicha to the great nevuah, how he was zeicha to see everything that's going to happen. B'achar sayam until Mashiach comes. Now again, these are words we're repeating, not that we have any real understanding of how this works. But just to hear the words, the Shulchan Aruch HaRachaim, Siman Tzadik Ches, Sif Aleph, brings about the Chasidim HaRashayim. They were misbaidim, umachavnim, bitfilosam, they concentrated, they prepared themselves, isolated themselves, zeroed in on their davening, achiu magiyam l'hispashtis hagashmius, until Gashmius was something they sort of stepped out of. There was a hisgabris koyach haseichel, achu magiyim koruv l'mailus hanevuah. There was zeicha almost a nevuah during their davening. So most of us, maybe not all of us, but most of us, yours truly included, is saying, this is all nice, but is this what I feel when I open the siddur? And the answer, says the Ber Maim Chaim, is this is what I could have felt when I opened the siddur. The problem is, when a person is over in a veil, like the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, he creates a shield of dirt that sort of bogs him down. The Eliezer says, Kshura by Kekelev, like a dog that's following you, and you can't seem to be able to shake him off. So when a person is over in a veil, his neshama automatically is dressed with a kind of sackcloth. The tomb of the 400 people going along with Esav, there's a kind of klipa, a kind of tumah that automatically associates himself with the person. And you can't wear sackcloth and come El Shah HaMelech. The guards are going to say, dress like that, you can't come in here, you're not wearing the proper attire. And every aveya that a person is over is like a thorn that pierces into the light of the neshama. Now, two pieces of wood that were never connected to each other, you can clean them all you want. But if it's not an even cut, you're not going to be able to put them together. Two pieces of wood that once were one piece of wood that cracked. If it's dirty now, it won't hold. The glue won't hold. The adhesive won't work. You won't be able to fit the pieces into each other. But the difference between something that once was one piece and two pieces that never were together is that the two broken pieces of wood that initially were one piece, if you wash it and scrape it and clean it enough, and you will be able to put it together, then it will fit perfectly. one to another. The same is true for the neshama. If one is Zaycha Lasu Malibai Kol Zayis, and he really has Charat on his Maisim, and he does tshuva, a real tshuva in his heart, he wants to remove the sackcloth from his neshama. So all of that original love that so naturally is there is just waiting to come back. So he teaches the pasuk Sais Asis B'Hashem Tagol Nafshi B'Elekai. I rejoice with Hashem. My neshama feels this tremendous joy with Hashem. Why? Ki Hilbishani Bigdei Yesha. Because I was able to put on the clothes of salvation, U'Me'il Tzedakah, and the great robe of Tzedakah Yateni has adorned me. The problem is when a person is Oiver and Azeir, he's suddenly dressed in sackcloth. They don't let you in. When you do tshuva, you're Zaycha to beautiful clothes. And automatically you have this cheshik and you have this love to want to associate yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when the Torah says, V'yahavta Hashem Elokecha, what is the Torah really saying? The Torah is saying that love is there. Of course you can't create love. I wouldn't ask you to create love. But I definitely will ask you to keep your neshama clean, or to constantly attempt to clean it from dirt that is there, so that that love can manifest itself, so that you can feel that love. Or at least the Torah is asking in the midst of Yahavta Hashem Elokecha that you understand that there is a natural love, and if you don't feel it, it's because of that dirt that's in the way. And at least have the ambition to want to clean yourself so that that love can come in and take its place. So every natural human feeling to come back to a Torah should apply to you as well. That is what we mean when we say Lekei Avram, Lekei Yitzchak, Lekei Yaakov. Hashem of Avram. The end is that every Yid can be Zeicha to that. But what the Torah is saying is the others completely shredded their Yetzirah to the point that it was completely disintegrated, and there was nothing blocking that natural connection between the Creator and the neshama that was created. The Rebbeinu Shalom and the neshama was there by the Avos. That is something that we are all born with, but we tend to lose it as life goes on and gets more complicated and we begin to stumble. The Avos never lost it. But through the Avos, we want to lift ourselves up as well. And therefore it says Lekei Yisrael also, because Yisrael, the Klolius, never lost it. The Chesaron that one Yid has, well, another Yid may have a mile to compensate for that. That's the great mile of Tefillah B'Tzibur. That at least someone else closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu can have an effect on you. And in certain regards where I may be closer to Hashem and another person has a pagam, it all sort of clicks into place. You can borrow one from another. And this, says the Be'er Ma'an Chaim, is what the pasuk is really saying. Hayoim hazeh. This could be the day. As Rashi tells us, B'chol yom yeh be'einecha kechadashim. This could be the day that you and I can feel an appreciation to every mitzvah, to every word of tefillah. It's like that bar mitzvah boy you put on tefillah the first time. When you understand that it is Hashem Elokecha, your God. When you are returning to your shayrish, that a mitzvah is not just a nice thing to do. A mitzvah means coming home. A mitzvah means being drawn back to the very essence of your roots, to the very real meaning of your being. Fulfillment of a mitzvah properly means you have now brought your existence to fruition. And if you understand that it's Hashem Elokecha, this isn't some kind of abstract thing that we're asking you to do, but you're coming back to your own essence over here. And it is in that frame of mind that you pursue Mitzavcha, Hashem's command to you, it'll automatically be the Shemarta v'Yasisa b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha, with your whole heart and your whole soul, because you're going to feel this is me. And every person likes to find himself. Every person likes to know who he is and come back to his very beginning. The very next pasuk is Es Hashem Hemarta Hayom, and Rashi says that there is no equivalent to this anywhere else in Tanakh. Rashi suggests that this lashon of Hemarta is a lashon of separation, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has separated you from the avodah zaras of the world and brought you close to Him. There is a pasuk in Eicha, that's Imrasai. The Mezritcha Maggid teaches Imrasai comes from the lashon of Imra. Imra means wool or clothes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, during the time of the Churban, has removed the clothes of Klal Yisrael, the special Bigdei Yesha, the clothes of the Neshama, that makes us feel close, that drives us to want to daven, to want to learn with a richness, with a moisture. That doesn't mean you can't work yourself back to it, but there's a dry spell in between. There's a desert sometimes that has to be crossed, and deserts are crossed with Mesiras Nefesh, with sacrifice. And yes, during a time of Churban, during a time of Hastaras Panim, things seem to dry up. But that's not a signal to give up. That's a sign to try to work ourselves back. And that is what the pasuk means, says the Ber Maim Chaim, as Hashem Hemarta. Hemarta, spelled Aleph, Mem, Reish, Taf, the same lashon of Imra, the lashon of a Levush. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, a Yid should never think just because right now the clothes were taken away from you and you feel nothing in terms of your ruchnius. Understand that sometimes that's going to happen. Those are the rhythms of life, up and down. You may have done something that triggers the loss of the Bigdei Yesha, the clothes of the Neshama. It doesn't make a difference. But the point is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I am always willing to put those clothes back on you. Like a mother who takes off the clothes from a child to wash it. And then if the child is sincere enough and shows a certain degree of maturity that the child is willing to stay a little bit cleaner, those clothes are there. The greatest joy is to put those clothes back on the child. And it's extremely important to understand this in light of the Teichacha, the warnings in this week's parasha. Chazal tell us they are read B'dafka before Rosh Hashanah, so the Tichel Shana, the Kil Leisel, the Tachel Shana, the curses should be part of last year. Understanding the Teichacha is a pivotal part of the Hachana to Rosh Hashanah. My father, the Zechayin Levracha, always used to share with me the story that when the Balatanya was in prison, one of the ministers came to interview him. And the Balatanya had just put on his tefillin. And when he saw him, when he saw the tefillin shalosh on his head, the minister began to shudder, and he stepped back in fear. He decided he'll come back later. When the Talmidim asked the Balatanya for an explanation, he said, it's a pasuk, it's a Gemara. The pasuk says in this week's Sedra, Kapitel Chav Ches, pasuk Yud, V'ro'u kalami ha'aretz, ki shem Hashem nikra alecha, and all the people of the earth shall see that you are called by the name of Hashem, v'yaru mimeka, and they should be afraid of you. However, the Gemara darshins, ki shem Hashem nikra alecha, that tefillin shabirash. The tefillin shabirash that is upon your head, and in a sense it sort of calls out to the world, look what I believe in. So what's the question? They saw me in my tefillin shabirash, they got scared, the pasuk says, and they will see you. Elu tefillin shabirash, v'yaru mimeka, they're going to be frightened. So the Talmidim asked the Balatanya, but the local peasants back home see us in our tefillin shabirash every single day, and we don't see them running away in fear. So the Balatanya said, take a closer look at the Gemara. The Gemara says, what does this pasuk refer to? Elu tefillin shabirash. It does not say Elu tefillin she'al harash, on the head. It says Elu tefillin shabirash, that is in the head. Running in the morning, looking at the clock, seeing, it's 20 to 9, I have to be by that bus at 9:20, throwing the tefillin on your head and grabbing the siddur, that's not the kind of tefillin shabarash that is going to result in a v'yaru mimeka. It has to be in your head. It has to become part of you. But it's interesting to note, explains the Sefer Ber Moshe from the Yerusha that Rebbe Zechayin Levracha. While the Gemara in Masechtas Brachos takes this pasuk and applies it to tefillin shabarash, the Tana de Be'eliyahu teaches from the very same pasuk that you can have this desired effect from limud haTorah. This is the lashon of the Tana de Be'eliyahu Zuta, Perek Tes Vav. Ki bezman sheha'adam hu anav b'Torah u'b'masim Torah. A person is modest in his Torah and good deeds. In other words, he learns Torah, engages in good deeds, but does so in a modest fashion, not to show off. It's just something between him and the Rabbeinu Shalom. Of Ishtai misyara mimenu. Now it's important to point out the context of yira over here is not in the sense of frightening someone in a negative way. Of Ishtai misyara mimenu means his wife will have a certain fear, a certain respect of him. Naturally. Like the pasuk says, Ish imay v'adav tiro. Fear means Sometimes the person is holding a big stick and you're scared of him, but then you're not really scared of him, you're scared of his stick. Real fear means a sense of pachad, because you're in the presence of greatness. So if a person says the Tana de Be'eliyahu is an onav b'tayra u'b'masim tayvin, then he has this, again, desired effect on anyone who's around him. As ishtay misyar mimenu, his wife respects him, v'chein b'nei beisai, the members of his household, the shchein of his neighbors, the krev of his relatives, afilu ha'akim misyar mimenu. Even his Gayish neighbors will have a sense of fear. Again, fear in terms of respect. Mimenu. Shenemer, as the pasuk says, again, the Tana de Be'eliyahu, quoting our pasuk, V'ro kol armi yo'aretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha, and as a result, the Yarim Mimeka. So the Shem Hashem that is nikra alecha, as explained by the Gemara in the Sechtes Brachos, refers to the tefillin on your head. The Shem Hashem nikra alecha, as referred to by the Tana de Be'eliyahu, refers to limud haTorah and ma'asim tayvim that are done in a modest fashion. And this Tana de Be'eliyahu actually appears twice. In Perek Yud Ches, it comes with a stronger lashon. Eliyahu Hanavi says, "May ani alai shemayim v'aretz, may heaven and earth be my edim. Shekol talmid chacham shehu kaira v'shayna l'shem shemayim." If he learns Torah l'shem shemayim, so there's a series of brachos that are spelled out for him, and he concludes v'lo'oid, not only that, ela she'ishtoi ubanav yireyim imenu v'akim yireyim imenu u'malachi yasharis shoyim b'shloim. My heavenly angels ask, how's he doing? V'akadosh Baruch Hu oyevaysei ahava gemura, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu loves him with a complete love. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, V'ro kol ami ya'aretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha v'yaru mimeka. However, just like the Balatanya explained, when it comes to the tefillin, it has to be tefillin shebirash, in order to generate this fear, this sense of respect around you, this sense of awe. The same is true for the limud haTorah. It has to be a real limud haTorah l'shma. Now, no one starts off learning Torah l'shma. You have to build up toward it. Li'olam yilmad adam shalei l'shma shenitach shalei l'shma b'l'shma. But your matara, your objective has to be to ascend the ladder towards the Torah l'shma. And, just like the tefillin, if the Torah is on your head and not in your head, the peasants won't exactly be very impressed. Neither will your wife and children. The Gemara in Ma'at Katan makes this very clear. The Gemara dashens, Kala Isaac b'Torah me b'fnim, if someone is Isaac in Torah on the inside, Torasei machrezes olav me b'chutz, then his Torah makes the proper announcement on the outside. But if the Torah is not inside the person, then it makes no announcements. Or not only that, it unfortunately may advertise a different kind of a message. The Sefer Bayis Umenucha has a very powerful insight into this Gemara. Someone's depressed, Rahman al-Islam. So you can tell on his face he's depressed. His spouse, his children, workers, they can for sure tell that he's depressed. You can see it, you can't hide it. The quality of life is measured by a person's confidence, by his simcha v'chayim. And when the simcha v'chayim is not there on the inside, his face tells the story on the outside. The same is true for limud haTorah. If a person is not truly learning on the inside, he may be in Kailo, he may go to Shiurim, but you're going to right away tell, especially those that are close with him, are going to realize that something is not there, something is missing. So he tells a story in this Sefer about a certain young man that came over to Rabbi Fol David Auerbach Zechon Levracha. And he began to cry. And the Rabbi Fol asked him, what is the problem? Tell me. He said, my whole objective in getting married was to be mamshach a life, to build a bayis nema the Yisrael, like all of the brachas by his Sheva brachas speeches. I wanted to become a gadol in Torah. But from the time I got married, this is so much more difficult for me to learn. My dream of a life of Torah, the home of Torah, is mamish turned right on its head. You should know every single day there's another problem. I want to go learn, I want to run out, my wife sends me to buy something. I want to go to my chavrusa, and my wife says, come, we're going to my father's house now. I want to sit down to write the shiur, and my wife says, come, you have to help me hang the laundry. This is nothing, this isn't learning. It's terrible. Rabbi Fol David said, come, let's go together to the house of the Chazaynish. And this young man stood before the Chazaynish, and he spilled out all of the pain in his heart, and the Chazaynish listened to the man, and he smiled. And Rabbi Fol David couldn't understand this. This young man is pouring his heart out, and the Chazon Ish is sitting there and smiling. So when the young man finished, apparently the young man did not see the Chazon Ish's smile. The Chazon Ish answered him. He said, let me tell you something. You should know that there are two who know whether your kavana is emes or not. First of all, of course, it's the Bari Kol Olam, who knows exactly what's going on in the innermost chambers of your heart. The second who knows whether you're sincere or not is your wife. If your wife knew that you wanted to learn Torah be'emes without any bittul whatsoever, she would be the first to help you. Just the opposite. She would set everything aside to make sure that your limud haTorah goes unchallenged and without difficulties. But I am confident that the problem over here is not your wife. It's not that your wife wants you to help her with the laundry. Your wife sees that your kavanah is not 100% pure. You also sometimes wander around a little bit, not taking advantage of every single moment. She has a sense that your objective of non-stop learning isn't always there. So if it isn't always there, then she may as well use you to help hang the laundry. She makes a cheshbon. I mean, if he can sit and schmooze with his chavrusa for a couple of minutes, if he can stand on the street corner for 15, 20 minutes after Mariv and go through the sugya of the day's politics, so why can't he help me go to the store? So we have to deal over here with the correct issue, said the Chazon Ish. The pshat isn't how we get your wife to change. The pshat is how we get you to change. If you are makabel upon yourself be'emes, that your matar in life is limud haTorah, then you'll see your wife will be the first to help you. The Chazon Ish's Yesod is such a ma'adik Yesod, and it applies itself almost to every aspect of life. You say to a child, how come you didn't do your homework last night? Because my mother made me go to the store. What does that mean? It means that the child was first playing. Then he was listening to a tape. Then he was schmoozing on the phone. And then his mother told him, can you please run to the store? And he started screaming, Mom, but I have to do my homework. Now I'm not going to be able to do it and finish it on time. You know how long it's going to take me in that store? Not condoning that's the way he should talk to his mother. But the child comes back the next day and sincerely argues that it's my mother's fault that I didn't do my homework. She sent me to the store. But the whole point is your mother sent you to the store because you weren't exactly busy with your homework to start with. In other words, we establish our sense of priorities in terms of what we do, and people observe what we do. Then, based on the kind of priorities that we project, people will try to align that with their needs. And the emphasis of parents, it also has to be understood. Sometimes a parent will say, can you believe it? My son spent the whole day playing outside, and then when I want him to go to the store, suddenly he starts screaming about his homework. He doesn't care about anything that goes on in this house. He has no sense of responsibility. That complaint has to be redefined. You know, he cares about what's going on in the house, and he has a sense of responsibility, but he also has a sense of priorities. To him, his sense of priorities are, number one, playing, number two, doing homework, and number three, helping out in the house. So naturally, you're trying to put number three before number two. And therefore, the child is defiant. Homework comes before going to the store. The fact that he was playing until now and he didn't do the homework is not because he doesn't care about the store at all. It's just that playing, that was number one. So if the young man comes home and he takes out a newspaper, a kosher newspaper, and sits down with a can of soda and takes it easy a couple of moments, and then his wife says, can you please come out and help me? And he says, I got to go to learn. He's doing the same thing. His wife resents it. He resents his wife's resentment. She's stopping him from learning. But the Chazon Ish explained to him, your wife is not the problem. You established the priorities. You decided, number one, you want to relax a little bit. Number two, you want to learn. Number three, you want to help your wife. And you want to help your wife. It's number three on the list. Number three is pretty high up. Now she wants you to come out and help her, but you're saying number two comes before number three because number two was limud haTorah. But once you've already laid down the premise that limud haTorah is not your number one priority, so who's to say now that she can't ask you to go help her before you go to learn? You established a sense of priorities over here. So she wants her helping to be number two, not number three. And who says she's wrong? I mean, after all, you've decided limud haTorah isn't number one, so it's not number one. Mehechatesa should be number 2. Maybe it should be number 3 on your list of what comes first. Establish, the Chazon Ish told him, that limud HaTorah is number 1, and you'll see your wife will be the first to help you. Now he goes on to write over here in the Sefer Bayis HaMenucha that this young man was makabel upon himself to be oisik and Torah, to be shakur ba completely. And he went on to say not only did his wife not distract him anymore, but on the contrary, she was the first to help him. She was the first to protect him. She was the first to make sure that he has the time to learn. And he goes on to write over here that this young man became one of the chashuv Talmidei Chacham in Yerushalayim. I'm sorry, he does not tell us who it was. The Chazon Ish's Yesod is the key to all successful relationships. It's the key to Yiras Shamayim in a relationship. You yourself decide who you are, and other people will react on the basis of the messages that you are conveying. Don't blame them for reading your messages. And that's what the Baal HaTanya told us Talmidim as well. Why do we put on tefillin? So we say it in our L'Shem Yichud. We say it in halacha. You have to be mechavenis when you put on tefillin. We put in our tefillin shel yad keneged alev l'shabed bezeh tavas v'machshavos libeini lavidasa yizbarach shemai, to subjugate our tavas and machshavos to be directed toward HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'aleroish neged hamayach. We put on the tefillin haroish, corresponding to the brain, shehaneshama shebemoichi, so that the neshama, the true feeling, the true life in my moyach, im shar hushai, together with my other senses, the koichi and my power, kulam yu mishibadim lavidasa yizbarach shemai. When a person comes home and he spends a couple of polite moments at home, and then right away he sits down to learn with a simcha, with a cheshik, he sits down to learn with his children, so you have established your priorities. You're showing everyone on the outside truly what drives your heart on the inside. When you put on the tefillin properly with the right kavanah, you're projecting the feeling in your heart and in your mind to the world. And if you're serious about it, then the world will respect it. B'nai Beisei will respect it, his Shcheinim will respect it, his Kroivim will respect it. Afilu ha'akim, says Eliyahu Hanavi, nisyarim mimenu, if you're sincere. The Be'er Moshe brings a medrash shechatayv. Amru Yisrael Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbeinu Shalom, Right Zamanu, Liga b'Torah Yom v'Layla. We would love to ponder the words of Torah day and night. Avol ein lanu pnai, what should we do? We don't have the time. We have to go out and work. We have to go out and make a living. There are things that have to be done. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Kaimu mitzvah tefillin, u'mal ani alechem ki lo atem yigim b'Torah Yom v'Layla. How much time you really have to learn? That depends on the person's circumstances. Of course, more so it depends on the person's will. The Imrei Emes, whose Hasmada was legendary, once asked the person who was a tremendous askin, big oisik b'tzarchi tzibur, yukavei itim l'tayra. So he told him, Rebbe, you know, from morning until night I'm busy with letters, with askanas, with running to government ministers, helping Yidden. It's just not possible. So the Imrei Emes called him into his kvittel room. And the kvitlach, the little pieces of paper where people write down their names and requests, were piled almost to the ceiling. He didn't say anything afterwards. As if to say, I have almost 1 million chassidim that I'm being misbowel for and crying for and I have to daven for. And I don't waste a second. I have my shiurim every single day. If there's will, there's way. But you have to be on that madrega. The fact is we have to go out to work. The fact is there are things in life that have to be taken care of. I don't have the yagi and Torah that I want to. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says put on tefillin. What does that mean? Even if you're not learning right now, but you can project in every aspect of your being, in the way you talk, in the way you do things, in the way you open a door, what your matorah is, the way you sit down at a desk, the way you say good morning to a person. Every time you lift a finger, you are projecting in the manner that you're doing it what your matorah is, what priority number 1 is. And that's the union of wearing tefillin. Originally, tefillin was to be worn the entire day, so that the feeling in our heart and the shibur in our mayach is projected into every single action that we do. Unfortunately, we cannot wear tefillin the entire day today because we're not at the madrega to maintain that level of purity. But that's what tefillin really represents. There's another nusach of the L'Shem Yichud, which we don't say generally. We say the one that's brought down in the Beis Yosef. Some Svardim say it, but it concludes as follows: Hareini meniach tefillin shel yad lahavi kol ha'ovdei kechavim tachas yad Hashem, u'tefillin shel rosh lahavi kol ha'ovdei kechavim tachas reshus hashchina ilah. The pasuk in our Seder is teaching us, If your actions are not having the desired effect on the people around you, then reevaluate your sincerity. Go through your actions with a fine comb and say to yourself, what priorities am I projecting? Because the pasuk promises, the pasuk in the Megillah says, Mordechai Yotzem Lifnei HaMelech B'levush Malchus Tachrich Butz V'Argaman. And this is how the Targum illustrates what Mordechai HaTzadik looked like during his time of honor when Klal Yisrael had their big Yeshua and he left Achashverosh's palace, now officially replacing the Rosh Hashanah. The clothes that he was wearing, explains the Targum, was pleated with pure gold. It came from Ophir. Gold from Ophir was the most expensive gold in the world. And these pleats also had sort of woven into them the most precious stones and rubies, the most expensive diamonds that the world even knew about. And underneath his outside cloak, Mordechai wore clothes that came from Tarshish min Medina Sayam, which was the most expensive material in the world. And underneath that, he had like a shirt of purple wool. Embroidered into it were the images of every bird in the sky. And his belt was studded with the most beautiful diamonds, the most expensive stones that filled the little openings. And the shoes, don't forget Mordechai's shoes. They were not buy one, get one free in some discount store. His shoes were, this is the Lashon of the Targum, Mishubatzim Zahav, Va'avonim Toivos, Neufach Sapir V'Yahalim, the most expensive stones and sapphires. They were all part of Mordechai's shoes. He wore a sword on his belt that was made out of the most expensive material. The city of Shushan was painted on it, as if to say he controlled the entire city. He wore a hat from Madai that had on it every color in the world, the most beautiful colors of the world. So this was quite a wardrobe. Like they say, it would even be hard for a borough park to compete with. It was a wardrobe that suggested sheer power and malchus. But there was one more thing. On top of this expensive hat that had all the colors of the world, on top of all of these clothes that was studded with the most expensive diamonds in the world, very clearly displayed, Ulamayla Minenu Hayu Tefillin. You had Mordechai HaTzadik's tefillin. And the purpose of that, Laharais Hasarim V'Hashirim, to show all of the other ministers and the rich people that yes, he is Mordechai who now was given power, but he is also still Mordechai HaYehudi. And the reason he clearly displayed his tefillin on top of this Lubush Malchus, on top of his majestic clothes, was to fulfill the pasuk in this week's Sedra, the Ro Kal Ami Ha'aretz Kishem Hashem Nikra Alecha. The Ami Ha'aretz will see that the shame of Hashem is Nikra Alecha. The Yaru Mimeka, they will fear you. The Gemara dashens Elu Tefillin Sheberash. In other words, if what you want people to read upon you is the shame of Hashem, then indeed the Umay Sa'olam will respect you in awe. Now, anyone that's been by enough bar mitzvahs surely heard one of the Darshanim say over the famous story that the Baal Tanya was in prison, and one of the ministers came in to see him, and that minister suddenly was taken aback. Others say he fainted, and the Baal Tanya explained later it's because he saw him wearing his tefillin. And when the Chassidim asked the Rebbe, but very often people see us wearing tefillin and they don't faint, sometimes we even get bottles thrown at our head. So the Baal Tanya quoted the Gemara. The pasuk says in this week's parsha, "V'ro kalami ha'aretz kishem Hashem nikra alecha v'yaru mimeka," and the Gemara explains, "Elu tefillin shebirash." Father Chaim Baruch Hu to share this part with me. The Gemara says, "Elu tefillin shebirash." It takes the tefillin in the head to create this v'yaru mimeka. It does not say Elu tefillin she'alarash. Simply plopping the tefillin sharash on your head is not going to do the trick. It has to be inside your head. Okay, so we understand the message, but in more practical terms, how can we distinguish between tefillin that is on the head as opposed to tefillin that is in the head? The Divrei Shal explains that you have to understand, first of all, l'mashal, the mechanics of a successful army. Every army, or basically any strategic union, any bureaucracy, any organization, is made up of two parts. You have the people on the field that physically do the work. In the case of the army, you have the soldiers, the combat troops, and their success depends on the success of their training. How strong are they? How quick are they? How swift are they? How much are they committed? How much can they endure? How brave and courageous are they? That is one aspect. That is one power of the army. The other power, which is perhaps equally as important, if not more important, is those that plan the strategy. These aren't people that are necessarily physically strong. As a matter of fact, they may be old and weak and frail. But they have the experience, they have the maturity, they have the sense of morals, they have the ability to sit down and look at the maps and decide what has to be done and how things ought to or ought not to be implemented. There's a story of an old Yidel that decided that being in the army may be his last chance for making parnassus, so he came to enlist. And he told them the truth that he was 85 years old. They didn't see very well or hear very well, and he needed a cane to walk, but otherwise he's full of energy. And they told him, sorry, you don't exactly meet the criteria for recruiting. Then he saw an old man pass by in uniform, a bunch of medals hanging from him, and a whole group of people walking around him. And he said, well, what about him? He doesn't look all that much better than I do. So the person sitting by the desk said, he's the general. And the old Yid said, no, you don't need any more general? But you don't become a general overnight. If you have a career in the army and you have the experience and you've seen people rise and fall and you understand the whereabouts and the mechanics of how human nature works, of how aggressiveness works, of how war works, and you have organizational abilities, only then, after the many years of being able to run and jump and carry rocks and do 1,000 push-ups, only then can you become old and be a general. But whatever the case may be, the army still consists of two parts, the physical ability and the ability to think. In a sense, explains the Drasho, that is the Tefillin Shel Yad and the Tefillin Shel Rosh. The Tefillin Shel Yad is Keneged Halev. The Lev refers to our meisim, to our deeds. Even though Chazal say that the eyes see and the heart craves and the Klei HaMaisa physically carry out the action, however, the heart is the first step before the actual doing. I mean, 99.9% of what people do is based on what their hearts tell them to do. So it's fair to say that the Tefillin Shel Yad, which is Keneged Halev, corresponds to the physical ability or the physical act of carrying out the things in life that we do. Of course, you may want to do something, but you need a particular talent, koyach, power, money, set of circumstances that allows for it to happen. But in terms of the person trying to do something, it's all heart. And then you have the Tefillin Shel Rosh. The Tefillin Shel Rosh is Keneged HaMoyach. The Moyach is the strategic part of the human being. The Moyach does not represent the Klei HaMaisa, physically going out and doing something, but the Moyach is more so the general. The Moyach is the inner security cabinet. The Moyach is the pace setter for the kinds of things in life that we're going to get involved in, and as a result, the kinds of things that we want to do. Now, although we would love sometimes not to have to make decisions, and we would love to live in the security of routine every day, chakras and breakfast and go to work and come home and learn with our children and go to sleep, but it doesn't work that way. Every day there are decisions to make, and there are new situations, new crises, new simchas, and we have to sit down and plan and make decisions. Every human brain has to be a kind of a general in terms of deciding what the strategy of your life is. And even though we are asked to and we ought to seek counsel, but ultimately it comes down to your own decision anyway, because you decide who to ask and what to ask and when to ask and how to listen. There is an element of decision that we all have to sit down to. There is a drawing board that we all have to face. Now, sometimes we're pretty sure about what we want, and we are frustrated when our heart doesn't seem to be able to carry it out, and sometimes we're confused even at the drawing board stage, and we're not quite sure which way to go. Both the Tefillin Shel Yad and the Tefillin Shel Rosh is a reminder that the success of the physical transaction, as well as the planning as to what kind of transaction I ought to engage, both are totally in Hashras HaShechina and the Siyata D'Shmaya. The more I am makir that with the Rebbeinu Shalom's help I can do anything, and without the Rebbeinu Shalom's help I can do nothing, then both aspects of my being are successful. Like the Lechovitch has said, that the key side for a yid to remember in life is mit under the Rabbeinu Shalom kemenish ibetreiten the shvel. Without the Rabbeinu Shalom, you can't step over the threshold. And mit the Rabbeinu Shalom, and with Hashem, you can fly over skies. So everything else is in between, stepping over the threshold and flying. And then, if you understand that you have to come on to the Rabbeinu Shalom, you can deal with life, or rather life will deal with you in a completely different light. Our Tefillin Shel Yad, explains the Rebbe, is a testimony that anything I do physically, the success or lack of such, is totally in Hashgacha. I understand that, regardless of what my particular talent is, besides the fact that it's the Kadosh Baruch Hu who gave me the talent, but given that I already have the talent. The success of my physical endeavors is Hashgacha. Then you have the Tefillin Shel Rosh. The Tefillin Shel Rosh goes even a step further, and it says, the success of what I plan for myself is Hashgacha. How often do intelligent people sit down to try to think things out, and they make decisions that in retrospect they say, Gaval, why did I decide that? It makes no sense. In the final analysis, sometimes they were successful because they did something that didn't make any sense, and sometimes they lose because of it. But whatever the case may be, it comes to a certain point in life when a person is makir that even what I plan on and even what I decide is Hashgacha. And that is the real meaning of the Tefillin Shel Rosh that is in your head. Basic human nature is to assume I have a brain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me that brain. My brain decides what parnasa I should try. It decides where I should live. It decides where I should go. It decides whether I should take the train, whether I should take the bus, whether I should take a taxi, which yeshiva I should send my child to. All these decisions in life. My brain is going to decide, and it's going to decide based on experience, based on intellect. Sometimes I'm certain I'm doing the right thing. Sometimes I think it's the best of two evils. But all of that is when the Tefillin Shel Rosh is on your head. There was another pchina of Tefillin Shel Rosh in your head. Tefillin Shel Rosh in your head means as follows. Any power that is vested within me, anything that I do that directly influences others or has an indirect ripple effect on others, all of that comes from me, there's an element of bechira, but behind that bechira is hashgacha. Of course, when I have to make a decision, I will sit down and consult and look for advice and maybe even research and think things out and reach a decision. But if I stop there and said, I made a decision, then I'm standing on shaky ground. Then my Tefillin Shel Rosh is on my head. If I stop right there and I say, Rabbeinu Shalom, I did everything that is within my power to try to arrive at a just and hopefully proper decision. But I know that all of this is narishkeit. And unless you guide me to the right decision, it doesn't make a difference how smart I am, then it's the wrong thing to do. Rabbeinu Shalom, please, let my own mind not play tricks on me. Let me do what your rotzin is. Let me decide what you want me to decide. And ultimately, it's going to be your decision anyway. That means the Tefillin Shel Rosh is in your head. Mordechai HaTzadik achieved a tremendous amount of power over here. Achashverosh may have been the mightiest king in the world. Haman is down. Mordechai, Lahavdo, takes his place, and he walks out with his levush malchus, with the signet ring. He is now the most powerful person in the world, and everyone comes running. Mordechai, how are you? And Mordechai stops right there, and he points to his tefillin, and he says, wait. Don't be fooled. Don't be misled. Don't be misguided by all of this lavish clothes, by this levush malchus. These royal clothes don't make me important. These royal clothes are an indication that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given me power, has planted in my mind now Hashras Hashchina. And now, the effects of my actions are going to decide the fate of many, many others. And therefore, that tefillin on my head is now closer to me. That tefillin in my head now is more part of me than it ever was before. Because every decision that I make, every strategy that I plan, and everything that I hope for and I want for Klal Yisrael hinges not on my decision or my wisdom, but on the Hashras Hashchina that is within me. In the final analysis, the more a person is mevatel himself and attributes his success to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, people will feel that. And then suddenly when they see him, they don't see him, they see the Hashras Hashchina, and as a result, it's V'ro Kol Ami Aretz Kishem Hashem Nikra Alecha and the Yoru Mimeka. The people around you feel the fear of Hashem through the conduit of Yirach Shemayim And that is the Erlich Yid, who is Dabak and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the emphasis, that's how the Vilna Gaon teaches the words. Incidentally, they say the same story by the Vilna Gaon, that during a pogrom, they saw him in his tefillin and they ran. But the Vilna Gaon teached, V'ro kol ami yaretz Yishem Hashem nikra alecha v'yaru. And they will fear Hashem mimeka from you. They will see the amount of Yir Shemayim on you, and that's going to cause them to fear Hashem. When the world saw Mordechai HaTzadik, who could have been the most arrogant person in the world, who walked out with what could have been the most arrogant clothing in the world, with the most power in the world, when they saw him point to the throne and say, it's all Narishkeit. This is it. This is a mission that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me. Everybody was overwhelmed with Yir Shemayim. Then the one who was a big shot until now because he bossed around 2 workers, he was embarrassed to say, and I should think I'm great? And when Mordechai attributes all of his power to Hashem, they will all fear Hashem Mimeka from you if you act right. And that's why this parsha begins with the parsha of Bikurim. V'lekachta me'reishis kol priu hadama. The Medrash puts together me'reishis and bereishis bar olekim. The Medrash says the whole world was created just because of the mitzvah of Bikurim. What does the mitzvah of Bikurim mean? The mitzvah of Bikurim means exactly this. Before I begin to indulge in my tremendous bracha in this huge field that I have, I take the first ripe fruits to Yerushalayim and I say to Bnei Shalom, I know it's all yours. It's a matana that you gave me. The Baal HaKedah says, Amor de Gavart. He says, you know what the main mitzvah of Bikurim is? Listen to the pasuk. V'lakachta me'reishis kol priu hadama, asher tavi me'artzacha, which seemingly comes from your land. You walk outside and you see your fields and you say, wow, look, I'm rich. Look at all these assets that I own. This is amazing. And for you to stop right there and say, no. This is all Asher Hashem Elokecha Noisein Lach. This is all what Hashem gave you. It is a matana min Hashemayim. And if you forget that for one moment and you attribute your success to your decision-making, to your abilities, it won't last. The success of your endeavors is to make this connection, to take the Asher Tavi Me'artzacha when it looks like it's coming from your land and understand that in reality, it's Asher Hashem Elokecha Noisein Lach. The Meshech Chochmah says, Amar de Kavart. 13 times you have Hashem's name in the Parsha of Bikurim. He says that's connected to Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim. In Parshas Ki Sisa, when we are taught the Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim, in that Parsha, once again, you have the mitzvah of Bikurim mentioned. When Parshas Ki Sisa, by the Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim, the pasuk also says, Reishis Bikuri Ad Mascha Tavi Beis Hashem Elokecha. The Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim, which changes the worst of the Midas Hadin to the greatest of Midas Harachmim, which is the basis of our Slichas, the basis of our Tefillah. The Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim is contingent directly on our understanding of the mitzvah of Bikurim. Because regardless of how far away we have fallen, but the more we are makir, that everything is the Bayri Olam, whether it was my decision or my physical deed, then the more you are mamshech v'yashuras hashchina, and indeed, we change the Midas Hadin to the Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim. The night of this recording, I came back from a Malava Malka. And I want to be honest with you. I came back very late from the Malava Malka, about 3:30 in the morning, and it's about 3:45 a.m. right now that this recording is taking place. Not because I'm such a big masmid, not because I'm accustomed to wake up early, and it's not even because I have a problem sleeping now. There was an emotion, there was a certain feeling that I came home from this Malava Malka with that I would like to convey to you in light of what this Parsha is teaching us and how Parshas Ki Savo is a hachana for the year to come. Tonight I attended a Malava Malka, or last night. The Malava Malka was very nice. There were Erlich Yidden, Manhigim by this Malava Malka, who addressed the Olam. And it was as nice as a Malava Malka is, with its speeches and miras and so on. After benching, most of the important people left. There were some frustrating issues that had to be dealt with by this Malava Malka that had been only partially resolved, not necessarily to everyone's liking. And the young man who was playing the music didn't back up. He just continued playing with 2 big amplifiers, and the Olam began to dance. The distinguished guests had left already, and someone grabbed the microphone, and instead of allowing a controversy to ensue, he just started to sing, and the Olam started to dance. David HaMelech Suda, the Kiddush of Malava Malka, that's the reason to dance. But someone said to me, the person who started to sing now, what a clever idea. Instead of allowing the Olam to disperse into groups and engage in Lashon Hara or Rechilas, he did the right thing at the right time. He was zeicha to a special bracha. I don't know how he thought of it. Or what gave him the mood and the emotions to set the tone of dancing and singing instead of arguing. And there was a true, pure simcha in the air. Everyone followed his call. In an environment of Kiddusha and Tahara, the Olam could be made themselves nourish a little bit, a little foolish, but everything was with good taste and good class, and it was like a wedding. And it went on until the wee hours of the morning. No one could explain why it went on until the wee hours of the morning. It wasn't scheduled, but it was there. The simcha was in the air. It was a special bracha, the bracha min Hashemayim, because frustrations that otherwise may have been vented in a confrontative way came out through song and dance and produced much better results. Now the Gemara says in Masechtas Imagine, Tani Rabbana, Hakara pasuk shel Shir Hashirim, the Oisai Kimin Zamer, a person reads a pasuk from Shir Hashirim and turns it into like a song, or V'Hakara pasuk bebeis nishtais b'lois manai, or a person just sits around drinking wine. It is not a malava malka. It is not a sudas mitzvah. Just people getting together to drink wine. And they begin to say psukim, sing psukim, and use psukim as a form of entertainment for themselves. In other words, they recite these psukim b'lois manai. The Gemara says terrible things. Maybe ra li olam. They bring terrible evil to the world. The Yomer Lefanav and the Torah says, "V'vayin shalaylam." Your sons have turned me into a kinar, into a harp or a violin that leitzim, that mockers are using, that comics are using. So what does the Rebbeinu Shalom say to the Torah? Amar Lasso Hashem says to the Torah, "Biti, my daughter, b'shasha oichlin v'shaisnu," when they eat and drink, "D'mahi safku." What should they be isaac in? What should you do when they're eating and drinking? Amar Lefanav, the Torah said, Rebbeinu Shalom, if they can read psukim, let them read psukim. If they can learn Mishnayos, let them be Isaac in Mishnah. If it's Pesach, let them talk about Hilchos Pesach. If it's Shavuos, about Shavuos, Sukkos, about Sukkos. That's the right thing to do. And the Gemara concludes, Shimon Mechananya tells us, Kalakaya pasuk v'zmani, someone who recites the right pasuk at the right time, maybe toiv l'olam. He brings good to the world. Shnemer, as the pasuk says in Mishlei, the davar be'itoy matay, the right words at the right time. How good is it? Now Rashi makes something very clear over here. Rashi says the negative side of this, where the Torah is complaining, that's where people are just sitting around drinking wine, and they're making fun of the psukim. There's a comic that's up there that's making jokes on the cheshbon of the Torah. However, says Rashi, if a person recites psukim or sings psukim during a Yom Tif, and he takes a kais biyada, in other words, there's joy, there's simcha in the air, and he says divrei agada and psukim and yonei shel yain, and he brings people together, and the Torah becomes a course of simcha and blends into this sudas mitzvah, maybe toiv l'yayim, then you bring the best of good to the world. So if you're enjoying the Torah, it brings the greatest bracha to the world. If you're enjoying it by laughing at it, by mocking it, then you're bringing the worst of klalis. There are two kinds of smiles that you will see on a person's face. You have someone that gets up, which is the classic Western comedy, and he makes fun of someone or something. And the more you're talented in ridiculing that person and turning him into a carbon, then the more laughs you get. You get laughs, but that's not simcha. Then you have someone that knows how to generate simcha. He has the right thing to say at the right time, and people laugh, and people enjoy it, and there's genuine, real happiness in the air. The Degel Machna Ephraim explains the davar be'itoy matayv is in general a bracha for someone who says the right thing at the right time. The Torah teaches us the mitzvah of bikurim. The Torah tells us that after all of your work on the field, you step into the field one day and you see a very simple but basic Pesach to bracha. One of the figs ripened. all of the work that you put in, cultivating the field, the plowing, the planting, praying for the rain, and so on, everything has come to fruition over here in terms of your emotion. You may only have one fig that became ripe, but it's the first fig. And quickly you tie a little rubber-like band around it, and you've designated it as Bikurim. Included in that process is where groups of Yidden are going to get together, and they're going to carry these peiros, march proudly with music toward Yerushalayim, and they're going to sleep out on the streets. It's going to be sheer joy, sheer simcha, and as this procession moves along and more Yidden join the parade of the people who are bringing their Bikurim to Yerushalayim, we have a very unique halacha. Workers, especially in the times of the Gemara, we were very, very strict with workers that they have no right to stop for a second because their time doesn't belong to them. There's an abridged version of Shmoneh Esrei for workers. There's not a Zeh, it's not Nogeya, because we understand that the structure of the workplace is different. One has his break where he can daven. But technically speaking, the Dina de Gemara has no right to daven a whole Shmoneh Esrei. There's questions about benching. How could he bench? Time is not his. And then suddenly you have this major exception. The Mishnah tells us that when the people are sitting and working and they look up and they see this parade of Bikurim bringers, the people bringing their Bikurim to Yerushalayim come, they stop their work and they stand up for them to share in their joy, to show their respect for this beautiful mitzvah of Hakaras HaTov of these Yidden coming to say thank you to Hashem. Why? So the Gemara says, well, that's how great a mitzvah is in its proper time. Now is the time for Bikurim. Everything stops for it. And then he comes to Yerushalayim, and there's this whole process with the basket and the tenufa and what the kohen does. And he says a whole pizmin dafka during a time of simcha, and he recalls the history, Arami Ovid Avi, and we cried out to Hashem, and Hashem helped us. And the parsha of Bikurim finishes with this pasuk. This is the very last pasuk in the parsha of Bikurim, Kapitel Chavav pasuk Yirav, right before Sheni. V'samachta, you shall rejoice b'chal ha'toiv, asher nasa l'cha Hashem alekecha u'leveisecha, ata v'halevi v'gesha b'kirbecha. Dr. Degel Machna Ephraim. The Gemara said, the davar b'itay ma'toiv, how do we depict the epitome of good? It's someone who says the right thing at the right time. The greatest result of the mitzvah of Bikurim is a special bracha that the Torah is giving us over here. V'samachta b'chal ha'toiv. You should rejoice by having a special bracha, a special talent, a special b'siyata d'shmaya of saying the right thing at the right time. And as a result, you should be able to generate real joy, real simcha amongst people. Someone walks around and he's worried and he's fadaigid, and you go over and you just say the right thing to him. And you get a smile on his lips. And you lift a little bit of that weight off his chest. That's the epitome of Tov. That brings the greatest bracha to the world. The davar be'itay ma'tov. But you have to be talented. People try sometimes to do that, and instead of saying the right thing at the right time, they wind up saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. And they don't generate simcha as they may have attempted to do. They generate just the opposite. You need a special bracha to have the talent of saying the right thing at the right time. And this is the bracha. As a result of the mitzvah of Bikurim, v'samachta, you will be able to generate simcha b'chol ha'toiv. In all aspects of the term toiv, of the davar be'itay ma'toiv, of saying the right thing at the right time. So perhaps that is why the dafka by the mitzvah of Bikurim, Chazal teaches the workers have to stop, because so great is the mitzvah in its proper time. The whole bracha of Bikurim is that it leads a person to be able to say the right thing at the right time. That's the ultimate bracha of the samachta b'chol ha'toiv. So it makes sense that dafka by Bikurim we are taught this in, respect this moment, stop what you're doing. Now is the time for Bikurim. The Degel Machna Ephraim explains there are two aspects to the samachta b'chol ha'toiv. The ability of saying the right thing at the right time brings simcha to the person that you're saying it to. It brings simcha to the world, because the Gemara says this is Nevi Toiva Li'oila, and it brings simcha to yourself. Because there is no greater joy, there is no greater simcha that a person can feel as when he says the right thing at the right time to the right person according to the circumstances of the moment. Lifting the burden of someone's heart. Bringing a smile to someone who has yet to show any sign of happiness on that day. This is sheer joy. There is nothing that can compare to it. Why through Bikurim? Very simple. Why do people say the wrong thing at the wrong time as opposed to the right thing at the right time? Because their attitude is wrong. We've mentioned this once before. In every relationship, the natural tendency of a human being, not bad people, human people, the natural tendency is to do this. We overrate what we do, the service that we offer in a relationship, and we underrate what other people do for us. That's the reason that every boss, or 99% of employers in the world, think that they're overpaying and that their workers are taking advantage of them. And 99% of workers think that they're being underpaid and that they're doing too much and they're not being recognized. Somebody once said why it's so difficult sometimes for building contractors to get along with customers. The building contractor sees over here his mission as finding the cheapest material for the most expensive price. That's what's coming to him. And the customer wants the most expensive material for the cheapest price. So you need very mature people to reach a compromise on this. The same is true for every relationship. If we fall on our natural tendency of keeping a file on all of the wonderful things we do and keeping, conversely, a file of the terrible things that the other partner in our relationship does or doesn't do, so ultimately that frustration builds up, and at a point of contention, it's almost a guarantee you will say the wrong thing at the wrong time. But on the other hand, if we work on the midah of a karasatayv, which is what the mitzvah of Bikurim teaches us, before you do anything, after all the work you put into this field, when you see that first ripe fruit, stop, bring it to Yerushalayim, recall your history, think about all the great toivos and wonders that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for us. Express that karasatayv to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Once you express your karasatayv to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you learn to express your karasatayv to people around you as well. And as a result, you are zaycha to simcha. You are zaycha to be able to make others happy. I once heard from an Adam Gadol that in every relationship it is important sometimes to sit down and make a list of the nice things that the other partner did for you. Even though on your mind, what's on the front burner, you're cooking with anger about what your partner didn't do for you or did in the wrong way, put that aside. Sit down and make a list. When you're worried and overwhelmed by fear, sit down and make a list of all the positive things in your life, of the things you ought to be grateful for, and dwell on it. Concentrate on it. Try to shift the weight from the natural tendency of overrating what we do and underrating what others do for us. Try to shift the focus of our natural tendency of exaggerating our fears and concerns and the things don't go our way and overlooking the many things that do go our way. Reposition yourself. Focus on the good. As a result, your whole life begins to change. You are zaycha to simcha, and you're zaycha to say the right thing at the right time. The mitzvah of Bikurim is for all the Shibbos Haminim. But the mashal that Chazal give is that a person walks into the field and he sees a fig that ripens. Why the fig, as opposed to the other Shibbos Haminim? Why is that used as the mashal to begin the instructions of Bikurim? And the answer is, as many point out, there was an opinion that the fruit which Chava gave to Adam Arishon, where the Eitz Hadas was a te'ena, was a fig. And the Eitz Hadas represents the lack of a karasatayv. A lack of appreciating what they had. She would only be happy if they can have what is off limits. And then Adam Arishon is faulted for a lack of a karasatayv because he said, it's the woman that you gave me that got me into this. This was a Kadosh Baruch Hu's gift to Adam Arishon. Why was he then turning it into the problem? Where was his karasatayv? And that caused all of the death and all of the pain and all of the sorrows of the world. So the Torah, in correcting that, in fixing that, begins by teaching us what to do b'dafka with the fig when it ripens, as opposed to anything else. When you concentrate on a karasatayv, you will have the bracha v'samachta b'chalatayv ashenas l'cha Hashem Elokecha. And that bracha, the pasuk says, continues on. When you have mastered this special bracha of saying the right thing at the right time, You know who's going to feel the blessing of that? That blessing is going to be extended, to your house, to you, to the lady, to the Gesher, B'Kirbecha, to everyone that you deal with, to everyone that's your environment. When you are Zoicha to this bracha, the Dover B'Itei Matay, suddenly, when you come, people are happy. They don't say, uh-oh, look who's coming. And there can be no greater simcha in the world than to know that your presence is appreciated, that you are bringing real smiles, smiles of Kiddusha, genuine happiness, simply by showing up, and they know you're going to have the right thing to say. Furthermore, says the Degel Machnafrai, the pasuk says, Avram Zakin Ba B'Yamim V'Hashem Be'eches Avram B'Koil. B'Koil, the Zohar says, is a special bracha. You're complete. You have complete amunah in Hashem. It doesn't make a difference what difficulties you're facing on the ground. And Avram gave that bracha to Yitzchak. The Yidin is Kala Shalai Yitzchak. And Yaakov had that bracha as well. Therefore, Yaakov said, whatever you take away from me, it's not going to change my amunah. It's not going to change my happiness. And that's the bracha of the Samachta B'Chol HaTayv, the bracha of Kol. A special blessing that a person feels, it doesn't make a difference what my situation is that I have to deal with. Thank you. I have everything.
This shiur is distributed by Kol Hadas, 11 Stei Chenet Street, Yerushalayim. For donations, please call 02-5383999. Fax 02-538-0267. Post Box 57035.